Some films use the music to manipulate. They tell you what you should feel before you feel it. Sam, at which point do you usually add the music?
Well, it's funny, isn't it? When I first started, and I feel maybe perhaps when I wrote that book, I'd argue more that, the music should be very much in your mind early on. But the more and more I do this now, and it is an evolution, right? And there's lots of ways you can do any of these things that we're doing. It's the secondary thought to me. And there's a reason for that, I think, if I break it down. If you get the shape of the story right in terms of what people say and you plot that change in the scene, you start here, you end somewhere else, and that propels you to go to the next place where that process repeats itself. I think if you get the scaffolding right for the story, you get the structure right for the story, the music sort of follows.
I agree with you.
And when music works best, it's paying off a feeling that you've established. So if you can get the story working without music, you can build the feeling. The music backs it up. You know, you don't need to lead with the music. Sometimes people lead with the music and they go, bam, this is going to be sad music. You don't even know where you are. What? You're telling me to be sad? I don't feel sad yet. There's no evidence. It's evidence-based, right? So you've got to make people go, that is sad, and then the music comes in and it just pays it off. It takes you on, and that's when you cry. That's when you feel it, because you feel it with genuine contact with the story and the material, not some artificial, you should feel sad. And then I'll tell you why later.
And in fact, you're pointing exactly at what I wanted to mention also is that some films use the music to manipulate. They tell you what you should feel before you feel it. So we could say that to avoid that mistake is to make sure, again, we go back to your first chapter in the book, which is put your story together first. Know what's your story, structure it well. The music will, The music will follow that. And usually you can tell. If you can tell when the story is so good that the music, even without the music, you're like, you know what, I can. When you're gripped in the first few minutes, and you want to watch the whole thing without the music is just going to amplify what you've done already. While if you're trying to solve that with the music, it's never going to work.
No. And you're right. You might discover you don't need so much music as you think. People think you need music to drive or whatever, or maybe a lot of traditional, whatever, scheduled TV, certainly like more American program making style would be drive with the music, push with the music. I would argue the opposite. Yeah,
I remember the first documentary I watched that didn't have music, I think, or one of the first. It was The Act of Killing. And I was smashed into the screen.
Werner Herzog. Yeah,
the whole time. And I remember, I want to be that good. But when it comes to actually use the music, and how do you make the decision usually? Or depends on the production, I guess. But when you go composed library or commercial music, not just what you do, but in which case usually you would use each one of this.
It's not a decision that's usually people invariably ask you who you like and what sort of people you'd want to work with, but it's usually often made at a production level before I join. Do they have the budget for a composer? Or I'm not sure it's always budget, it's whether it's necessary. Most things, almost everything I do has a composer on board. But invariably, because they maybe have a lot to achieve, or some of these things we do are sort of multi-part, you're leaning a little bit on production music too, either for guide until the composer catches up, because you need to get working.
Yeah.
Or simply to fill in gaps that they're just never going to get time or budget to work with.
To somebody listening that maybe they're doing their first short doc, or they're trying to do something, but maybe we also have some people that can afford halfway. Like, what would be your suggestion? When do you choose composed library or commercial music? Like, how do you make that call?
I would probably say start with the library side of things, in as much as it will teach you about how to work with music, because what that music should be doing in some ways is being an independent part of the story. It's not just telling you the obvious thing because that's in front of you. When it works best, it's giving you, is telling you something that the pictures and the words are not. It's an extra component. And what's quite good about the library side, not to dwell on it, some of it's good, some of it's terrible, it's just like with anything, is, it gives you a really good base toolkit to work with. And there are loads of companies out there that make the stuff.
Yeah.
Composers are great because they give you a fresh perspective, and invariably they'll come up with something that you really hadn't thought of. Filmmaking is collaborative, more or less, most of the time. And that's the fun of it. It's that debate. It's that creative debate that makes it better. Everyone has a point of view.
For library, Sam, can you suggest a few platforms?
One I like is Extreme Music. It's Sony's production music arm. There's Universal Production Music. There's so many out there. What else is there?
Okay.
There's this, you go top or bottom, but I'd say Extreme's a good one I like personally, and Universal, because they use a lot of real orchestras and real instruments, and you get all the stems. You can separate the elements to make a score that feels more tailored to your specific thing.